it. My only thing is I just like the hungry element to this team right now. I like that they have a bunch of guys, Lawton included, who you're looking at and saying, what are you going to have to pay these guys in free agency? They are playing for their money. And if you're the Leafs, having the comfort with the cap situation of, we're going to be able to pick and choose which one of these guys we think best fits the roster moving forward. And to me, Lawton would be the priority over McMahon. And same thing goes for Michelli. I just don't think that there's anything that he's going to be able to do during the regular season because the playoffs is going to have to be a test for him. And that's something I would say about McMahon too, is last year he had a terrific season, showed up in the playoffs, and was fairly invisible. He didn't really show up down the stretch. So you do have that with him that I think is a little bit than the Tyler Bertuzzi comp is you could lean on more seasons of getting a consistent, this is what you are getting from Tyler Bertuzzi versus what you're getting from McMahon. So to me, I play it out, but again, I'm not heartbroken if they extend any of these guys to a reasonable number and reasonable term during the season if they think it best fits them. Okay, so you mentioned the blue line thing being the area of focus for this team and what they're going to do. I keep losing sleep, not just because of these games, but at the idea that Treliving continuously stays enamored with Rasmus Andersson and won't move off of that idea and ends up putting a trade package together that I just really don't love. The conversation right now, though, is kicking around Dougie Hamilton, a Toronto guy who is not – it's not happening in New Jersey. You would think that some people have made the parallel to Seth Jones. Like, I've gotten multiple text messages where you go, well, it's Seth Jones. He's only a year older than Seth Jones, makes $9 million. He's turning 33 in June. And, yeah, some of the underlying numbers for him have not been sparkling for the last 2 seasons, but he's an offensive defenseman, and he has proven to be that throughout his career. A change of scenery, certainly you could make the case, like Seth Jones, could behoove this guy and benefit this guy greatly. What's your read on whether or not the Leafs would give some calls there, especially considering, Brad Treliving has already traded for that guy?
Brad Treliving, I mean, they're going to call, right? They call on everything and they look at everything, but I don't see that as what they're looking. I don't see that as like a Berube fit, right? With what they're trying to do and what they're trying to build. That's
they need
like
to be
Seth
able to
Jones,
move the puck, and he does that.
Yeah.
You're trying to build a team that can move the puck.
Hey, I like Dougie Hamilton. I'm just saying, like, the conversation you're talking about that's happening is more in the market as opposed to with the Maple Leafs, right? And the names that I don't think they're going to. They were frustrated with the Rasmus Andersson situation last year. They went really hard at that last year. That was the player that they wanted instead of the Carlo Lawton situation. They were going to go big at Andersson. And the front office, I think, felt that Calgary just was going to want more from them than another team, which has been talked about a lot with the Treliving situation and everything going on there. And they didn't think there was a fair deal to be made there for Andersson. So maybe they revisit that, but I doubt it. I think that Calgary's going to want a first-round pick there for one, and the Leafs don't really have one to give. So, and I don't see them trading Cowan for him either. So I feel like that was a hard trade for them to make last year when they did have the first-round picks. I think it's even harder to make now, and I just don't see that happening. So Hamilton, I wonder if you could get some retention on that. I wonder what kind of an asset. I wonder if there's any kind of an asset there that New Jersey wants back. I mean, if you can get him at a lower cap hit the way that Florida did with Seth Jones, and you're not giving up a lot, then 100% I think that makes some sense. But the one, I can't remember who made the comment, but I saw one comment on social media and it said that Toronto would eat Dougie Hamilton alive. So make of that what you will. But I mean, he's a guy that's got a quirky personality that's bounced around a little bit. And some of the more old school personalities in the league haven't always been enamored with just the quirkiness of his personality and the way that Dougie Hamilton is. So is that a fit here? I guess we'll see. I mean, people wondered what the fit was going to be with William Nylander and Craig Berube, and they've managed to make it work. So maybe there is something that can happen there. But I just find that a little bit of a stretch that this front office is going to look at Hamilton as the answer.
So to the Toronto would eat him alive point, he's 32 years old. He's also played in the Canadian market. I would guess he's with the Boston Bruins. Like, I don't know. I'm more a believer in when you reach this point of your career, and if you're frustrated in New Jersey and you're adding to a team that has this kind of vibe around it, and all kinds of other targets when it comes to fan ire if things go poorly, you're to the stumbling blocks with the Dougie Hamilton trade is last year when Seth Jones was traded, Chicago retained $2.5 million of his deal. That's it. $2.5 million. And granted, his deal was much longer. So it ended up being the biggest retention in NHL history just in terms of like the total dollar amount year over year, having to pay that 2.5. But for a guy that was a distressed asset and who everyone knew needed a change of scenery out of Chicago. And like, I don't care how you feel about Seth Jones versus Dougie Hamilton in terms of, hey, well, Seth Jones has such a higher ceiling or he's a better defensive player, whatever it is that you want to say. That situation was ugly. They needed to move off of him. He was a distressed asset. They got Chicago to pay 2.5 a season, and it still cost them a first-round pick and Spencer Knight. So the idea that the Leafs, I think obviously they need to get retention, but for me, Dougie Hamilton makes $9 million, and as great as your cap situation is, the fact that he has 2 more years after this, I don't know how you could possibly make the case that you're going to add this guy unless the retention is 50%. Bring him down to 4-5. And
I can't see.
That's what I mean.
I can't see New Jersey who's not going to want to do that, right? Because I mean, I know they're struggling right now, but they are going to want to contend. So they're not going to have that kind of dead money on there. That's the difference with Chicago, right? Is that they're not really in their contention window. The cap's going way up. They're not as worried about that 2.5 on Jones. That's 2 or 3 years from now.
So what do you think that the retention number would be then for you? That would make Hamilton palatable. Like if you could get him down $3 million, $2 million.
I was thinking 2 million, and you're not giving up any kind of an asset. And you look at, can you make the numbers work? And I mean, part of it is the calculation is Tanev coming back, right? There's 4.5 right there. So if you're getting Dougie Hamilton for 7 and there's the 4.5, you can fit that in, and it's not going to hurt you that much. But I think with Hamilton, I mean, he's had a lot of injuries. You know, last year wasn't a great season for him. The offense seems to have dried up. You know, there's red flags there. There's more red flags, I think, than with Seth Jones.
Yeah.
You know, I know that the age thing is, it's more like wear and tear on the body, I think, for Hamilton that's adding up for him right now.
So that's I think, the good point. So for $7 million, even with his upside, even with the skill set at its best, is $7 million enough for you to take that risk? And I would say that's too much. It's too much to take on $7 million into your cap situation, roll into the offseason, and have him and Morgan Riley making $14 million on your book the following year. More than that. And yeah, Tanev might not come back this season, but your hope is that he'll be ready to return for camp next year. And then when you're looking at, hey, what's the ripple effect of this contract? It does become, now you're a little uncomfortable if you need to re-sign Bobby McMahon right away. Now, I know some people will say, come on, man, don't overreact to the Troy Stecher thing, but it is harder to envision a reality in which you bring back Troy Stecher if you're bringing in Dougie Hamilton at $7+ million and he finishes the season this way. Like those are just reality.
I mean,
yeah,
Lawton's going to
exactly.
You know, if you want to bring Lawton back, yeah. I mean, Robertson needs a new deal. Michelli's an RFA. They, you know, to go back to your earlier point of McMahon, I think what they need to be careful to do is not lock in a whole bunch of these guys,
right?
Because you're going to want to see what this team is the rest of the season, and I think maybe you extend one of them and decide who that is, and you make that move before the trade deadline. But you do want to keep people uncomfortable, but you also want to just see what they look like in the playoffs. I mean, if it's a disappointing first round exit, as good as it feels right now with the way that they've played, you're not going to want to bring the exact same team back next year. And that's what you would be doing if you started re-upping all of these forwards here right now.
That's why the only guy I'd be extending the contract extension to is Scott Lawton. Like I'm the most comfortable believing like that role and the player that he is not going to change in any way, that he will continue to retain that level of value, especially considering what you think, again, outsider perspective here, but what he has meant to that room and the vibe shift with the team, the feeling like he is already part of their leadership core. Yeah, just he's the only guy that right now I'd be actively working with him and saying, what does an extension look like for you? Like, let's have talks ahead of the deadline. You want to play here? Are you interested in going back to Philadelphia? I'm sure he would be at the right number, but if you can get a deal done with him, that's the guy that I would prioritize. That's the only one where I I don't think I could see a contract extension realistically, like, right? Obviously, there's a number that would make you feel uncomfortable, but in a realistic world, I don't imagine there's a deal that he gets tendered and that he signs where Leaf fans would look at it and say, oh my God, I can't believe he ended up getting that one. All right, last thing. So Stolarz now has the potential to come back before the Olympics. And really, I think that I don't view this so much as a problem because as great as Hildeby has played, you got options. You can put him back down in the AHL and things are fine. Good problem to have overall. You have too many good goalies, good problem to have. But how do you think this thing shakes out? Do you think it's as clear and simple as that?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how people trying to twist this into a problem of having too many goalies or something. The great news is that Hildeby doesn't require waivers to go down, so there's not an issue. You can bounce them back and forth. And the other thing too is that look at all of the injuries that Woll and Stolarz have had.
Totally.
How long is it going to be till you need Hildeby again? So you don't, the idea of trading one of these guys, and you're not going to trade Woll, you're not going to trade Hildeby, and Stolarz doesn't have value, so you're not trading anybody. You're just going to be a little bit patient with this. And you're going to wait, and you're going to hope that Woll and Stolarz, that nobody gets hurt. But if they do, you have someone who's ready to go. And let Hildeby go down to the AHL and crush it. And when you get to the playoffs, there's a huge advantage to having a goalie with a low salary the way that Hildeby does. He's probably going to be your backup because that frees up you extra money to spend under the way the playoff salary cap's going to work. So having a Hildeby making, what's his contract, $875 or something like that, and being a really compelling option. I mean, even if Stolarz is healthy, he's going to have to play pretty well to unseat both of those guys as playoff options. So I think it's a great thing. And it's, in terms of making a trade or making sure you don't have three goalies, that's an off-season problem. That's not one you're going to have this year.
Completely agree. Also, I think because people saw Stolarz struggle at the beginning of the season, there's just a little bit of a tendency to think, well, what's he going to look like when he comes back? What happens if he's not performing? Then you get a bit of more of an awkward conversation. My counter to that would be, throughout the last 3 years of his career and beyond that, when he's had the proper role for him, which is not overextending himself with games, he's been one of the best in the league. He has been phenomenal throughout his entire career. You look at what the Leafs were defensively to start the season versus what they've been doing now. Even so, Colorado had a bunch of great chances. I think Woll played extremely well last night, but a lot of it, they were firing some pucks from the outside. I thought Toronto did a pretty decent job at keeping them away from the middle of the ice. There were some transition looks and certainly some spooky moments, and he had to make, again, some big stops. But Stolarz in this goalie environment, coming off of an injury with a workload that is tampered down because he has Joseph Woll at his side, and even if he didn't, the Leafs' comfort level with playing Hildeby in a bunch of those games and not just forcing him to play. How many did he go in a row? Like 6, 7? It was something along those lines.
Yeah, was it Woll that played 8 or 9 in a row?
Woll did do that, and then he got hurt. But I'm saying at the very beginning of the year when there was no Woll, how many games, and it was Caden Primo, and they were just leaning so heavily on Stolarz. You limit his workload and you put him behind this team the way that they're playing right now. My belief that he is going to struggle and be an issue, and that there's going to be real talking points of they got to get Hildeby back up here, and what do they do because they can't play this guy? I'm not buying it. It's just not something that I believe is realistic.
Even if that does happen, you can just bring Hildeby up and spot him starts and play him when you want to. I mean, so I just don't see it as a big issue. And you're right, though. The other one thing that Stolarz does have a lot of experience at is coming back from injuries in the middle of a season and hitting the ground running. You know, he's put up those numbers you're talking about while not playing a lot, in part because he gets hurt a lot. So I think you're right. I think he'll be fine. We don't know what he's dealing with, though, right? And we don't know what kind of procedures he's had. And he's been out a long time, and he's a big man. So I wonder if there's a conditioning stint maybe they do here. I mean, I wonder if he plays with the Marlies a game or two, the way that Woll did when he was coming back. And maybe that prolongs the idea of a Stolarz return until after the Olympic break.
You have the luxury of time. You don't need to rush him back whatsoever. I don't get the sense that they are. But when I look at the Olympic break, part of me goes, all right, maybe he wants to feel the puck. Maybe he wants to play in a game before this break settles in and they're off for essentially a month. But my true feeling is, hey, man, what's that really going to do? What's 1 or 2 games? And I don't even think it's going to be 2 games because we're already January 13th here, and I think the Olympic break kicks in, I think after the 4th of February, somewhere around there. First week of February is when they play their last 2 games against Calgary and Edmonton. Just take the time. Just you've done it enough, like you mentioned, over the course of your career where you've hit the ground running after an injury. This is totally about the long haul for you and what you can do come playoff time. The goaltending's in a great spot. There's no need to rock the boat. Take as much time as you need. Get back fully healthy. Use that added month. Just recuperate. Anyways, James Myrtle of The Athletic, thanks as always for making time, buddy. We'll talk to you soon.